What up, everybody? So this is apparently this guy has the reason behind why people are returning to New World, why it's gaining players again. So let's see what this guy has to say about it. This is Baggins TV.
Today we are going to talk about Friends, today we are going to talk about the current state of New World and also the latest big update which just came to the game, which is Season 2 Blood of the Sands. A bunch of people often ask, like, how is New World these days and is it worth jumping back into the game? Like what is going on right now in New World. So in today's video, we're going to cover what Season
I
2
think
is,
it's
how the
worth
current
it.
state of the game is, and what to look forward to in the future, and whether now is the right time to get back into New World. Now, one thing I quickly want to cover is I mentioned that this is Season 2. Some people have a little bit of confusion when I say a season in New World because of Diablo 4, another game similar. We associate a season with being like a character level reset. That's not the case in New World. A season in New World is basically just one big update where they just chuck a whole bunch of content together and patch the game with it. With Season 2, some of the biggest pieces of content that we have coming into the game are raid groups, so you're now going to be able to group up with up to 20 players. Previously, it was just 5, and to support raid groups, we have a raid boss of sorts here, which is the Sand.
I mean, that's an improvement. And I like the way they did the seasons where it's not a season. It doesn't reset you every time. That shit would be annoying. And to the New World people, please don't fucking do that.
Sandworm. Now,
Let's keep it the way it is.
it's not a raid in a true sense. Like when you think about something like World of Warcraft, you'll
Actually, keep improving it, but don't make it to where seasons are like season resets. That would be fucking. I'm glad they didn't do. I'm glad that the seasons are pretty much just patches with new content. That's what I like about it. One of the things I like about it.
have multiple different bosses with several different encounters and a bunch of trash sort of in between each boss room. The Sandworm is just one boss, but it's still probably the coolest fight that we have in New World so far, and it's looking like it's probably going to be quite challenging with all the buffs that they've done from test server to it coming to life. There are some okay rewards you can get from the Sandworm. Some of it is surprisingly not that great, which considering this is the hardest, or it's supposed to be the hardest boss fight in the game, you would have thought they would have made the rewards like super good. But nonetheless, this is probably one of the biggest pieces of content that we have in Season 2. Along with the Sandworm Raid, which is a 20-person boss encounter, we also have the Hatchery as well, which is a 10-person encounter. Now, this one only lasts for the duration of the season, which is a bit weird. I think Amazon needs to be focusing on evergreen content that is always going to be relevant rather than doing a boss fight that only lasts for the season, as I feel like one of the biggest problems with the game is just we don't have enough content, and again, focusing on content only lasts for a brief amount of time doesn't seem like a wise use of development time, in my opinion. Anyway, the Hatchery, compared to the Sandworm's supposed to be really difficult, one of the highest end pieces of content in the game, where the Hatchery is probably quite a bit more casual, and you could just make a pug group and
That looked really awesome whenever they were like running through there trying to dodge the fire. I like stuff like that.
probably complete this, provided people knew the mechanics. You effectively have a few waves of enemies, and then you have the boss fight at the end. And the rewards are okay. There is some decent pieces in here, but generally not like insanely good stuff. But most importantly, it is another piece of endgame content, and it's something that you can do with the new raid groups. And the final piece of content that we have that kind of supports raid groups, although you technically don't need to be in a raid group, is the Siege of Sulphur event. Now, I believe this is going to be in at the start of Season 2. Spoilers, as I'm recording this, Season 2 hasn't actually officially begun. But the Siege of Sulphur basically has 10 people interact with the mage here, and then angry earth mobs spawn, they come at the eggs, and you have to try and defend them with your group of players. Because this is an open world event, you can kind of bring as many people as you want, so it doesn't necessarily
I like the open world events and stuff. That's really fun.
have to be a
Because you can kind of do the open world events like um on your own, or you could do it with a group too.
group of 10. It could be a group of, 50. You could have 5 raid groups, or you could just, have like several groups of 5 players. But it's a slightly different take on some open world content that we haven't particularly seen in New World before, and the rewards for this event are going to be pretty good as well. Outside of the Sandworm, Hatchery, and Siege of Sulfur, raid groups will also just work for open world content in general. So if you want to form a raid group for doing a chest run or some open world PvP, you can do it for that as well. And speaking of PvP, Season 2 does have some changes for PvP players as well. So first things first, we are getting cross-server Outpost Rush, which is a pretty big deal. So you will be able to play Outpost Rush with players from other servers, provided they're still in the same region. This should open up matchmaking. Well, there's not really matchmaking in Outpost Rush, but it should allow you to find games faster and hopefully give you more varied type of opponents rather than just playing against the same 40 people over and over again. There's also going to be a new 3v3 arena map as well. This will not be cross-server queue, but will be in the future, but however, maybe not until winter. They're also adding 2 times daily rewards for 3v3 arena, which is going to make it a little bit more appealing, because right now it's just way better to do Outpost Rush for the Outpost Rush box of loot. They're also making some pretty good improvements to the PvP reward track as well, so you're going to be able to get like decent pieces of gear more often. Right now, the reward track is honestly like pretty underwhelming, but it is going to be quite a bit better in Season 2. The other main updates that are coming with Season 2 are the Season Pass. So this is basically just the Battle Pass. There is a free and paid version of it. In my opinion, if you are a new or returning player, there's some pretty good stuff you can pick up in here in both the free and premium version of it. The premium version, for those interested, looks like it's going to cost about $20, or you can pay $30 for like some bonus levels to start with.
When people do like stuff that they can buy to get ahead in games.
Some people ask, is the Season Pass
So that makes sense why that would attract some new players.
pay to win? In my opinion, no, but that is under the perspective that I've been playing the game for thousands of hours. If you and another player were to start at the same time and your friend bought the Season Pass and you didn't, your friend would probably progress a little bit faster than you because of some of the booster tokens you can get in here.
That's what season passes are supposed to be for, to progress faster, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the whole point of them.
And they might occasionally get a better piece of gear than what you have available just as drops as well. So, again, if the Season Pass was to release at the start of New World, like
I would be pissed if I spent money on a season pass for a game and didn't get any extra perks or bonuses compared to, or progress a little bit faster than somebody that didn't buy it.
like right at the beginning, I would say it's probably pay to win, because you can get to end game faster and start taking territories faster, and maybe occasionally you get a good piece of gear. But generally, the Season Pass, I don't know, the rewards are kind of underwhelming in terms of the pieces of gear.
I mean, is it an option? Can you still do all the stuff for free if you didn't buy the season pass? That's what I'm wondering. Pretty sure you can. It just takes a little bit more time.
For like true end game best in slot, it's very rare that you're going to find anything good. Interestingly, though, they do have these transmog tokens. So this is currently the only way that we can see on the PTR as a way to get transmog tokens, which is another feature that's going to be coming in Season 2. You, however, not until about halfway through Season 2, just to make things a little bit confusing. Transmog is basically the ability to take any weapon or armor in the game and use it as a skin. So to my understanding, you will open up your inventory, you have a piece of armor that you like. Let's say I like this helmet. I'll be able to click here, use transmog token, and then it will add it to my skin inventory. Again, this is speculation on how it's going to work. I don't know for sure. But effectively, if there's any cool pieces of loot that you get in the game and you like them visually, but the stats just don't line up, now you can wear it as a skin with the transmog system. Along with the Season Pass, there's also a seasonal storyline. The season storyline is pretty fun. There's some interesting voice acting and a few little cutscenes here and there. Also, the rewards from the seasonal storyline are pretty good, so I generally recommend that you go in and check that out. In Season 2, we're also going to see the return of the Summer Medley Fair event. For those of you interested in fishing or musical instruments, or just generally enjoy the more casual vibe of the game, the Summer Medley Fair event is pretty fun, and it also has some cool music to go along with it as well. And the rewards, last time we got some really good crafting patterns from the Medley Fair, so probably going to be another one that's worthwhile taking part in as well. And then lastly, the other big piece of content that we have arriving in Season 2 is the removal of First Light. Now, I am aware that saying the removal of a zone as a piece of content is kind of like...
You know, I've noticed that, and I'm not sure how to feel about it, honestly. That's where I started out. That was my first character. Is where you start was First Light.
That's a bit silly to say that. However, this is... I don't know. I'm excited for this.
that is silly that they took that. I don't understand it. I don't understand removing an entire area. That doesn't seem like progression. But some of the stuff in that area did seem kind of repetitive, like the same stuff as other areas, just copied over, and given new aesthetics to change it up just slightly. So on that note, I mean, I guess I could see, but it seems kind of lazy just to remove the entire area instead of making it more unique.
This might be the most exciting thing, even though it's not even really a new piece of content. It's a retraction of content.
Yes,
But it sounds
exactly.
cool in there. I am excited to see what's behind the wall. We're not going to get to see what's behind there and the new zone that is going to be replacing First Light until Season 3. But I thought it was worth mentioning as it's like,
Okay, so at least so they are going to replace it with a new zone. So that makes sense. So that makes sense now. So they're going to pull that zone and replace it with a new one later on. So that's good.
it's a hype piece of content that gets us excited for the future
I was worried there for a minute. I was like, why?
of the game as well. First Light is going to become seemingly some sort of angrier jungle forest area, probably with new resources and a bunch of other cool stuff as well. However, that's not
Not gonna lie, I think that's that's probably gonna be pretty dope. And I mean, I do think they need. I did think they needed to change some stuff about that. So like, it was pretty neat, but it could have been better. And I like to see that they're making it better. Honestly.
until the expansion, which is in October, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So that covers all the big major stuff coming with the Season 2 update. However, how is the overall state of New World? How is the game this day compared to release and, the general progression of the game since then? Well, in my opinion, the game is probably in the best state it's ever been in terms of like actual content and quality of
Yeah.
life. Leveling is much faster, more fun. The
And I would say they have balanced out the weapons a little bit more and made some stuff where it's not just super weak and underpowered, and they've made other stuff where it's not overpowered too, and that used to be an issue with several items and stuff. So like, I think they've genuinely been paying attention to like what the players want and executing those changes to try and um, make the players happy with the gaming environment presented.
The quests are more varied. Endgame progression is easier than it was in the past. We now have the Gypsum system, which you can use to sort of custom target particular items and increase the expertise, which used to be known as Watermark back in the day. There's also some nice quality of life features, including Dungeon Finder, although we won't really get to see it here on the test server, but there is a group finder functionality to find other players to play with. Along with this, we also have a significantly reduced fast travel cost as well. Again, we're going back to the release of the game here, but it used to be like 500, 600 Azoth to move around the map, and Azoth was a real pain in the butt to get to, so you basically just had to run everywhere. Now there's tons of fast travel shrines. You can see like one here, one here, one here, so wherever you want to go, there's a fast travel shrine, usually within a couple hundred meters of it.
Yeah, I've
They also have
noticed
some other
that
nice
too.
quality of life features like gear sets, so
There used to be like 3 on a map, 2 or 3 fast travel marks on a map. Now there's way more. I've enjoyed that. It's a good
so these
change.
effectively work like loadouts where you can equip. Right now I can switch between DPS and healing just with the click of a button. You equip different sets of jewelry, armor, weapons, depending on whatever you put in there. One thing this doesn't do sadly yet is your weapon mastery. It doesn't change weapon mastery and it doesn't change attributes, but still it is a pretty nice feature. Some other really big updates that we've had in terms of quality of life since release is connected storage sheds. So you can now access any storage shed from any other storage shed on the map. So if you need something in Windsward, you can just pull it out. And then if you want to pull something from Windsward and put it back into Everfall or somewhere else, you
That's a nice change too. That's a nice change too. So you don't have to go to those locations to access the storage sheds in those areas. I really enjoy that because that was kind of a pain in the ass having to do that. But so that's a good change.
you can do that as well. It used to be that back in the day, you would have to effectively run to the storage shed, or you could pull it out, but it would cost you quite a lot, and you could only do that if the faction owned both territories and you were the same faction as well. So yeah, removing a lot of the restrictions that just like made the game more difficult to play, those are kind of gone. You can also open the inventory on the move. Again, the game is just...
Was the game really that bad, or was everybody just expecting something that was just super easy for them to play? Was the game bad, or was the people that were complaining about it just bad MMO players? That's what I'm wondering. Because I haven't stopped playing it, and I've enjoyed it.
A whole lot nicer to play now than release, and it's a shame. If we had these features at release, I think the game would be doing way better in terms of player numbers, but it is what it is. Now that's the good stuff and improvements for the game. However, the negatives for New World, in my opinion, crafting in the game is still very tedious and like has such a huge setup to it, and that you need to have a full set of crafting armor. You also need to have the earring with the relevant perk. Then you need to eat the crafting food that gives you the relevant perk. You also need to have 3 different houses as well, and put down a major trophy of the relevant craft, so 3 major armoring trophies in 3 different houses. You also have to hope that the people who own the settlement that you have a house in have set up the corresponding buff for the thing that you want to craft, like armor's inspiration. Luckily, on the PTR, we have every single buff available, but sadly, this is not the case on the live servers. After you've got your armor, your earring, your food, your trophies down, the buff, you also need to make sure that you have the legendary or relevant materials to make the item, and the timeless shards, and the golden scarab, and then you can finally craft, provided you've also got the trade skill all the way to 200 as well. However, it's then not guaranteed that you will get a good item. There is a lot of RNG when it comes to crafting, so all of it, like, I just feel like crafting is frustrating a lot of the time, and it's often just like throwing away tons and tons of gold, and you know, somebody next to you could craft the same item and they could get exactly...
I feel like it's more of time, waste time, and it can be kind of tedious. I like to craft so I can like use it for repair parts. Like I'll craft a whole bunch of like bullshit and then just salvage it, all of it, for repair parts and stuff. Like, and it's not that big of a deal to do that. Like, this doesn't take anything to craft like some iron armor or whatever, you know, and then salvage it. You got a shitload of repair parts and stuff. This doesn't take that much.
Exactly what they want, and it's just down to luck, effectively. Now I'm aware,
and I think like a big part of that is like you can spec your you know territory standing and stuff like that. You can get parts on like what it costs to use crafting stations and stuff like that by the amount of by how well known you are in an area or whatever. So it's all about how you spec stuff too.
Where that suggesting, you know, being able to guarantee craft a good item is going to sort of break endgame progression, but I just wish there was some sort of system that if you really put in the time and effort, like if you went around and killed every single dungeon boss, or you killed the sandworm like several times and you got some sandworm scales, that you could guarantee craft a good item provided that you put in the time and work. Whereas right now, you could get it in 1 attempt, or you could get it in 500 attempts. It is most of New World's endgame progression is just RNG, and it doesn't really reward skill too much. Or not even necessarily skill, just time commitment. Another aspect that's not great about New World, and this isn't necessarily the game's fault, but the end game is quite gate kept. There is a lot of gatekeepers. When it comes to running mutated expeditions, you need to make sure you have a full set of Bane gear, so we're talking like Corrupted Bane, or Human Bane, or Beast Bane, or Angry Earth Bane, or Lost Bane. That's also another problem as well, is all the different sets of gear. And the Ward, is the corresponding, so Ward on your armor, and then Bane on your weapon, and you need to have a different type depending on which dungeon you're going into. You also need to change your gems over as well, if it's a fire mutation, or a frost mutation, or a nature mutation. There is just a lot of different hoops that you have to jump through just to be able to take part in the end game. And the same can also be said of PvP, where you need Resilient and the relevant skill perks. Wars, which are the ultimate endgame PvP content, also are quite gate-kept in that there's only a limited number of slots, so company leaders are only going to take players that they're familiar with and know are going to perform well. And in general, trying to get gear for PvP and PvE isn't really straightforward. You have to go and craft it or buy it off of another player or like farm endlessly over and over again in hopes that you finally get the drop that you want. There isn't that many straightforward paths of progression where it's like, hey, if I go do this quest or kill this mob, I know that I will get a good item for this piece of content. There are a few examples of that in New World, but they are few and far between. Now,
I mean, I like having to work for stuff too, though. You know, having to work for stuff that you get in game, that's fun to me. You know, I like a little bit of a challenge. I don't want everything just handed to me. You know, like.
Now, one of the things.
So if I have to go and kill a mod, you know, say 2 or 3 times before I get my drop, I don't have a problem with that, you know, because it presents a challenge to me. You know, it gives me something. I can feel good about the drop whenever I do get it, you know. So it's just not necessary. Now, it can be like, how can I say this? Over tedious or something, or, you know, they could, sometimes they'll make stuff, you know, harder than what it should be, but I don't mind a little bit of a challenge also.
Thing that is worth mentioning and sort of will put a perspective on this whole video is Season 3. We talked about it a little bit when we said that First Light is being removed and replaced with a new zone in Season 3, but Season 3 looks like it's also going to have some other major shakeups to the game as well. First of all, Amazon is labeling Season 3 as an expansion. This is the first time that they've labeled a piece of content as an expansion. Whether this means you'll have to pay an additional fee to be able to unlock this content is not clear yet. My suspicion is that they probably won't charge for it because, again, a lot of people already own a copy of New World and they just simply need to get those people to reinstall the game and try it again, and they're less likely to do that if they charge them for it. But it still remains to be seen as to whether we'll pay for the expansion. But in Season...
I think that's gonna, if they charge for the expansion, I think that they're risking more people walking away from the game again because they don't want to pay, because they're not going to want to pay the money for it again when they've already bought a copy of New World once and didn't like it.
Season 3, there is going to be a soft gear reset. So they've said that the current existing gear that you have right now, your best in slot gear, which is the current highest ceiling is 625, this is going to be increasing to 650, maybe even 700. However, the 625 gear that you have right now will not be upgradable to the next gear score ceiling. You're probably going to have to farm out new sets of items, and only items that drop after Season 3 will be upgradable to the new gear score max. So it's not as if we're going to be losing our existing stuff, but you will be replacing it. And this kind of disincentivizes a lot of players to play Season 2 because they feel like, well, what's the point? If any gear that I get now is just going to be replaced in Season 3, why should I even try? And in my opinion, well, it's just like, if you want to play the game for the next 3 months, if you want to enjoy any of the content that I've talked about coming up in Season 2, you will still need to have the current and appropriate gear for that, but that is something to bear in mind. Season 3 is likely also going to see the removal of...
You'll still need the appropriate level, I'm sure.
Ward and Bane as well. We talked about it briefly, but the need to have Beast Ward or Lost Ward or Corrupted Ward or Angry Earth Ward, all of the different wards and the Bane for the relevant type of content, Amazon decided that it's not like particularly that fun, so they're going to be removing these perks from the game. And again, I do think that's going to sort of coincide with Season 3. So if you're looking for almost like a clean reset and a way to get back into the game, Season 3 does seem to be where it's going to happen with the expansion. But to bring it back to the beginning of this video, is Season 2 worth jumping in, checking out? Absolutely, yeah. I think the game is much better now than it has been in the past. If you just want to get familiar with New World and sort of kind of prepare the character, at least in terms of how much gold that you have and maybe crafting materials, because I suspect those will probably carry over into the expansion, you could do that. Also, the game is 60% off right now as well. This is not a sponsored video, but you can get New World at a very discount price. I believe 60% off. That's the cheapest we've ever seen the game on sale. So if nothing else, just to buy a copy of New World now and then, you know, play it when Season 3 comes out, that might be a good value proposition, provided you don't have to pay for the expansion when that does arrive. So I think this is probably a pretty good point to wrap up the video. Hopefully you guys found it useful to learn about the current state of New World. Again, I do want to reiterate, the game is much better now than it was at release. It's much more stable, there's far less bugs. The quality of life with the gear sets, with the inventory and the move, with the shared storage. Also, one other feature that I didn't talk about is the ability to search by perk as well, so you can search for refreshing in your inventory. I'll show you everything with the refreshing perk. Again, some really nice stuff in the game, and it does look like partially Season 2 with cross-server queuing and all the other stuff is a setup. It's adding some good stuff in the game for what is probably going to be a gargantuan and huge updated game with the expansion in Season 3. So if you want to take part in New World, get some skins, check out the Season Pass, try some of the raid bosses, you can do that in Season 2. If you just want to wait until Season 3, which seems to be the biggest update, they're also introducing mounts to the game as well in Season 3, but I think we should make a separate video to talk about that. As always, guys, if you enjoy these sort of videos, make sure you go ahead, click the subscribe button. I'll keep you guys notified with more New World news as it comes out. Smash the like button if you enjoyed this one. Let me know your comments, how you're feeling about the game down below. And as always, I'll catch you guys all in the next video.
Honestly, I mean, a part of me thinks that like people left. The main thing that turned people off with New World was whenever it first was released and it was crashing people's GPUs or whatever, their graphics card. People's graphics cards were just burning up and obliterating from New World. It was fucking people's shit up. People were asking for refunds. Some people didn't even want to risk it and stuff like that. I tried playing it on a GT 710. But anyways, yeah, it was a fucking mess. Now, I love the game. I think it's done nothing but progress and gotten better with the couple years that it's been out since it's been released. I think it's done nothing but get better. I'm gonna continue to play it. I'm gonna continue to do New World content, and it's just a good game.